Astronauts are really, really good at making pictures in space that look like you've never left the planet. In fact, it's almost hard-pressed to tell whether you're in space or not in this picture. You know, we've got some fancy backdrops, I guess.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
But going to Mars should be one of the next series of steps that humans do. The first step should be going back to the moon for a number of technical reasons and exploration reasons, and then after that, Mars, maybe high orbit in Venus atmosphere, maybe going to Europa. There's all kinds of targets to go to, places of interest in our solar system. The only limit to human future is in our own imagination.
Kal halal Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham Makakwadash. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom Yasharala. For those of you not in the know, that was your resident egghead gastronaut, Don Petit, unwittingly exposing the buffoonery that is the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA for short, and the so-called exhilarating experience of space travel. Not to single out Babylon alone, because the other nations are also equal participants in spreading this fallacy of space travel and men landing on the moon. I remember being a child in the early 80s, and I remember that day impatiently awaiting our school teacher to wheel the TV into our classroom so we could all watch the racially diverse 7 gastronauts finally fulfill their childhood dreams and go where only a few had gone before. I know for a fact our teacher was equally excited as it was the first time that an actual classroom teacher would be granted the opportunity to go into space. In any event, I'll never forget the look on her face and how fast the pit in my own stomach disappeared when a space shuttle Challenger, aka the astronaut killer, caught fire and disintegrated into like 1 million space particles almost a minute after being launched. You know, they say almost 50% of children in North America watched the launch that day, and more than half walked away traumatized. Another thing I'll never forget is the question my mother asked me when we were let go early that day from school. Same question I have asked my own children individually when they bring up the topic of space exploration. So you actually believe them when they say they've been to the moon? You know what, let's go to the scriptures. This is why we are here. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians 2, 3-9, but for now we'll go straight to 9, and I'll double back, so to speak, because the premise of this message is Esau being revealed in his ultimate deceptions. This is 2 Thessalonians 2:9, and it says this: even him, speaking of Esau the deceiver, liar, and murderer, whose coming is after the working of Satan, who is the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders. Let me tell you something, for those of you who are already in the know, pretend like this is the first time you heard it and the last time you'll have to. Ain't nobody been to no moon. Excuse my ghetto vernacular. Ain't nobody been there. All nonsense, all horseradish. Stanley Kubrick tried to tell you that in the movie The Shining, and by the time he got to Eyes Wide Shut, the elite got tired of him revealing the secrets and finally got around to killing his ass. There is something called the Van Allen radiation belt, an energy charged particle belt that originates from solar wind, which is captured and held around the Earth's magnetosphere. The Earth has two and sometimes creates others temporarily. This belt, as well as lack of the necessary technology, despite what the great deceiver tells you, makes it virtually impossible for anybody from Earth to park their chariot on the moon. Okay? So, not too long ago, NASA was asked to share their footage of the original moon landing with, I believe, an independent from the scientific community. You know what their answer was to everyone's, including mine, surprise? Not that they were unable to because it was classified, or we'd be happy to, as it promotes the necessity for space exploration and why Big Brother should be allocating budgets and finances there. No, their response is, we would love to, but the original footage was recorded on VHS and it was accidentally recorded over and it is unable to be recovered. Shut the front door, Esau. Come on, man. You can't write this stuff for real. This is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 20, and it says this: O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called. There are those independents that believe all information introduced since the 1960s regarding human flight and space travel is nothing more than pseudo-science and propaganda invented by Russian and American. Remember, Russia supposedly landed on the big cheese first. Well, the suggestion is space exploration is nothing more than propaganda being perpetuated by Russian and American, really Edomite astrophysicists. Obadiah 1:3 says this: The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Now this begins with Esau and his habitation of Mount Seir, pursuant to Genesis 36:8, and extends to the Romans, who were the first to invent the high-rises called insulae, Latin for island, owned by the wealthy. The higher up, the cheaper the rent. And then later, well after the Renaissance period, where Esau, the so-called white man, regained his power, the 1700s to be exact, King Louis XV invented the elevator. Then the rich started buying and relocating because there they found a piece of safety and security. The idea being the more higher up, the more safe and away from the poor. A perfect example of Esau's pride. Verse 4. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle being the symbol of every Edomite nation and its sense of pride, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, which is twofold as it speaks to Esau's building of space stations and his space exploration aspirations after they've polluted the earth to be damned. They think they're going to be whisked away by their rocket ships to their idea of Elysium, for those of you who have actually seen the movie, in their nest away and above the stars of heaven, who are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians, pursuant to Exodus 32:13. Thence will I bring thee down, saith Yahweh. Esau is getting brought down right now because that deception is being exposed. Thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord, also speaks to Esau's idea that nesting amongst the stars gives them a military advantage and a basic defense against the other nations, and as well the coming of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah in the chariots, what they called UFOs or UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. But the Heavenly Father is going to bring them back to reality real quick. Now, NASA in the Hebrew means to lift, carry, to take. Yahweh is going to give them a lift out of their pride, carry them into captivity so they can take this ass whipping. Don't get no simpler than that. Now, All jokes aside, NASA, Hebrew in the plural, is Nasha, and it means to beguile, as in Genesis 3:13, the primitive root to lead astray mentally, and to delude and seduce morally, to deceive greatly and utterly, which speaks to the idea of space travel being propaganda and pseudoscience. Pseudoscience is defined as a collection of beliefs or practices mistakenly regarded as being based on scientific method. Now, it wasn't until I came across the Challenger hoax article some years later that I truly, and I believe there is a video out there in YouTube land. I'll put it up in the post, but it wasn't until I came across that article that I truly understood how far the elite would go to deceive greatly and utterly. Now, Don Petit is the latest gastronaut, and I say gastro because he's full of hot air and shit. Don Petit is the latest gastronaut to reveal what we've long since known, that ain't never been, won't ever be no moon landing. The only benefit from the government Salakia funded space programs is really the technology that gets created by these scientists and in their aspirations to sit on the clouds, which will ultimately lead to their own destruction anyways. And I believe that's Job 5:13. You know what? Let's get it. Let's get that. This is Job chapter 5, verse 13. And it reads, He taketh the wise in their own craftiness. The wise being Esau, Edom, who we know from Luke, the 16th chapter, the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. We Israelites are those children of the true light, this knowledge and this truth. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried, Salakia, headlong. Esau will have to find out the hard way. His head is too big and his arms are too short to box with the Most High. Let's close with this. I was going to go back into 2 Thessalonians, but the Spirit says let's go to Jeremiah, the 51st chapter, and close out. This is Jeremiah 51. Let's start at verse 52. And it reads, Wherefore, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, and these days are fastly approaching, that I will do judgment upon her graven images, meaning her false gods and idols, her being America, aka New Babylon, and the extension of that is, of course, Esau, Edom. And through all her land the wounded shall groan. Verse 53, which is really the point. Though Babylon should mount up to heaven, and though she should fortify the height of her strength. Ronald Reagan tried to do it first with the Star Wars program. Now, Elon Musk and Bezos and the other rich dummies are trying to do it as well, along with the Space Force, which is to build up a strategic defense. Because that is ultimately what it's about here, ladies and gentlemen. It's to build up a strategic defense that will be able to, and of course the other reasons I pointed out earlier, which is to pollute the earth and then get up out of here and leave us with the great cleanup. But ultimately, it's about building a strategic defense that will be able to combat the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shai, and the heavenly hosts upon their return. Yet from me shall spoilers come unto her, saith the Lord. And spoiler by Hebrew implication, meaning to ravage, destroy, and waste. A sound of a cry cometh from Babylon, and a great destruction from the land of the Chaldeans, which again is America. The Chaldeans are the witches and warlocks of the elite ruling class. Because Yahweh has spoiled Babylon and destroyed out of her that great voice, spoiler alert, when her waves do roar like great waters, a noise of their voice is uttered. Because the spoiler is come upon her, even upon Babylon, and her mighty men are taken, speaking to her military. Every one of their bows, their nuclear missiles, is broken, for the Lord power of recompenses shall surely requite. And those spoilers have to be the ICBM, the thermonuclear missiles. In any event, call halal Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Ba'Shem Rakakwadash through the power and spirit. I hope you are edified. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who teach it's 100% truth and rule well. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Remember, no tests, no jickety jabbity jab, and for God's sakes, don't take that chip. Shalom. Yasharallah, shalom.
My question is, through your career and your writing and your acting, you've inspired so many people to enter the sciences. How do you balance science with science fiction?
They're both the same. The mystery of science fiction is what I'm talking about. Science and science fiction are essentially the same.
Thank you very much.
How do you prove a black hole? How do you know those gravitational waves proved the collision of two black holes?
Somehow, eventually, they are able to observe phenomena.
No, they can't observe. It's too far away. It's too theoretical. How do we know what they're saying is true? You know what it really is? It's all science fiction.
Science and science fiction are essentially the same.